Hi folks, we're Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this essay as you would a radio broadcast. In this presentation, I'd like to talk about, and there's a number of court cases that have been sort of started, and some are already getting decisions where straight white males are suing their employer for being passed over for promotion or other, employee-related benefits that once existed on a meritorious basis, but now exist on a quota, affirmative action, equity, and so on basis. So now, what's interesting here is when the straight white boys are dragging the case into the court, the attitude of the employers that are getting decisions made against them, and they're having to sort of on a tort law basis. I mean, just to explain tort, T-O-R-T, it's to return the injured party to the condition they were in before the injury, in this case, financial and career, was inflicted upon them. So there are settlements being made. Some of these are public and some are done quietly with non-disclosure agreements. But what's interesting is that the employers are really, hey, we didn't do anything wrong. We just, hey, we had quotas to meet. We had black lesbian quotas to meet. We had, lesbians in wheelchairs quotas to meet. We had quotas. Hey, we had quotas to meet. We had to meet them. Well, did you have to meet them? Well, we thought we did, and that just meant because of these quotas, we just didn't have any jobs for straight white males. Okay, sure, it wasn't merit based. Sure, we were just hiring for the quotas and the box ticking, but so what? What's the big deal? I mean, why are you giving us a hard time about this? And so they don't really care, but then they just don't think they've done anything wrong. Now the people at the apex of the executive suite are all straight white males. When you go to the next level down, then you'll be struggle to find any straight white males. But it's just interesting that it's who's pushing this stuff. It's all straight white males, this DEI and the quotas and so on. Now, sure, they're getting flunkies and black lesbian directors of diversity, they're doing all that, but it's window dressing. It's really them that is signing off on the budgets and facilitating it and encouraging it and making the provisions for it to happen. And merit is they don't care. Now it's interesting here because I mean this guy was a senior training officer, and there's one case I've been looking at. He's a senior training officer, and his boss retired or resigned or something, and so he expected to get the job, and his performance reviews were good and so on. So, but then when it came to it, they hired a black woman who not only had no credentials or anything, but had no experience whatsoever in this area, either whether it been training or in the particular technical area of training that he was involved in. So he's got a completely unqualified boss who's a black woman with attitude and so on. Now she's very conscious that she's hopelessly unqualified and he is very well qualified, so she attempts to belittle him and disparage him in front of others to try and make elevate herself, this sort of thing. Anyway, she's so bad they get rid of her, but then they bring in the gay black man in the wheelchair and so on and it goes, and he's passed over a number of times, so he takes it to court. They've got he won and they've got to compensate him and this sort of thing. But it should never have got to court. It should never have needed to go to court. If they wanted to hire, get a quota hires, then they could have still hired those people, but without needing. But their argument was, hey, we had, in the managerial sort of status of things, we had to have a certain amount of section heads or department heads that were black lesbians, and they just happened to choose his department as the training department. Who cares? Who says what quality training is or isn't? Who says what's effective or non effective? And I've been in situations where the training training officer or training operative maybe barely speaks a word of English, and they've been given the job of training people in English. We're only there because of diversity hire and quota hire and so on. But there's quite a few of these cases going around and going to court. And people are now, with President Trump in the White House and a winding back of DEI policies, they're more inclined to go and pursue legal action, and more resources are available for them to do it. And this is all a good thing until these companies, businesses, employers, doesn't matter, till they pay a price for this reckless policy of quota hiring. But there's a few sort of backdoor issues we need to talk about. This particular organisation that was, this trainer guy was in, they were able to get a lot of government handouts, through USAID and all that sort of stuff, to effectively pay for or to fund their diversity, equity, inclusion hiring policies. And they also received a lot of government contracts they previously weren't getting. So the actual commercial need for quality training declined because the government was saying, look, do this, put lots of black lesbians in that department, and then we'll give you all this other government business. So the business that they were getting was not competitive bidding or anything. It was cozy backroom, sweetheart deals of business to compensate them for a destructive policy of DEI that was reducing the quality of the people because they now weren't being trained proficiently. So you can see how it becomes a sort of a loop within itself, going round and round, where as soon as you introduce low quality, poor quality, affirmative action and one point of the loop, then it goes round to the next point of the loop and reduces the quality there, either government, cozy government handouts with no accountability, lower quality employees, lower quality training, it doesn't matter. But then it just goes round and round in almost like water going down the sinkhole. And this, of course, is the proverbial race to the bottom, and this is happening or has happened all over the place, and we may be first seeing the first signs of that reversing. Now, I see this constantly, and the amount of times I've gone into meetings with potential clients or actual clients, and I've been aghast at the low quality of people. Like you wouldn't employ any of them on a merit base. Half of them don't speak English. Half of them that do speak English don't speak it well, and so on and so forth. Now, just how vast this attitude, this policy is, and and I'll do another video on this. But there was some Indian people that we were talking to, and the woman, a Indian woman who's recently arrived in Australia, and there's a government department that actually hired her from India. So she's not an Indian citizen, Australian citizen, or doesn't have an Australian work permit, but she applies for the job from India. Now, if you get to, whenever there's an Australian government job that's advertised, they get 1 million applications from every third world country in the universe, across the internet. Anyway, somehow this woman comes into the frame. God knows how. It's the government department. So she doesn't have to come in to Australia to be interviewed. It's all done online. Now, how many hundreds of applicants they got in Australia, I don't know. But they then sponsor this woman to come out as a sponsor, in a work visa, a sponsored worker, and gift her a government job. And it's not a job sweeping the streets. It's quite a senior job in the public service in Australia, or in a regional government. So now her attitude is that, twofold. She takes two positions here. She thinks she's hot shit. She's a goddess as far as she's concerned. And so she thinks, one is that Australia just doesn't have any skilled workers in it. So they had to hire me from India. I didn't even have to come to Australia. They hire me from India because there's no one of any skill, even moderate skill, in Australia. That's obviously not true, but she floats that as a potential theory. The next theory is, and she's a little bewildered herself. How did I get this job? The next theory is Australians are so stupid and lazy and useless that they've got to go to a third world basket case shithole like India to get quality employees. That doesn't make sense. But anyway, she thinks that's a strong possibility, that option. The final option, which is one that sort of, and she even mentions this with something of a sneering tone, is that the Australian government has abandoned its own people and is just employing people from outside Australia because the gifts and rewards of these sorts of jobs should not go to Australians, and the government wants to give them to brilliant Indian geniuses like her. And so she says it's the same as, just if the government wants to give up on their own people and hand the jobs off to Indians, then more the fool them, and I'm the beneficiary. I've got no problem with that. So now, if we go through the last two options, or the final option is probably the one. So the government has abandoned their own people. My estimation is that for a job like that, they would have got many hundreds of applications from local people. Local white people would have been the majority, particularly given the area that it was in. So somehow the government people in that area decide, no, we're not going to hire somebody white. We're not going to hire a straight white man. We're not going to hire someone local, or even someone who is local with a work permit. No. We're going to sponsor this Indian chick that fancies herself as a goddess on steroids. I must be brilliant, otherwise they would not have hired me. I must be a fucking genius, otherwise they would not have. Yeah, sure. But it goes to show, I think, how aggressively organisations, commercial and government, are the lengths they'll go to make affirmative action hiring decisions. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.